The child embodies our ultimate vision, that every Filipino learner will realize their full potential and ultimately reach their biggest dreams, no matter how high, no matter how hard, through quality education. And as our learners aim to soar, we must continue to elevate our goals. Rising, the kite is our emblem of aspiration to deliver the brand of quality in Philippine basic education. The quadrants of the soaring kite symbolize the key reform areas in forwarding this cause, as we embark on this aggressive reform to yield upskilled teachers, well-developed curriculum, improved learning environment, and responsive multi-stakeholder cooperation. Using the colors of our flag, the logo symbolizes our unity and serves as a reminder that it takes a nation to educate a child. Together, we as a nation will have to move forward and gain more momentum so that our vision of quality basic education for all shall take flight. Sama-sama sa pagsulong ng edukalidad.
Well, hello, Mrs. Morgan. Remember how hard it was to get your students' attention? Oh, Mr. Jeski, any explosive ideas? And you, Mr. Fisher, the world keeps turning, right? Okay, we're past all that, because now we have Microsoft Educator Center. Trainings, courses, webinars, programs, badges, points, certificates. Join now and get yourself ready for the new school year. Teach your best.
Nang sumiklab ang giyera sa Marawi, maraming buhay at kabuhayan ang nawala. Maraming kabahayan at paaralan ang napinsala. Sa kabila ng matinding suliranin, naging matagumpay ang DepEd na mabigyan ang mga mag-aaral ng pagkakataong ipagpatuloy ang edukasyon at muling bumangon sa sitwasyon. Habang naghihintay sa pagkumpuni at pagsasaayos ng mga paaralan, nagkaloob ang DepEd ng mga temporary learning shelters, remedial classes, learning kits, at feeding programs para sa mga displaced learners. Nabigla ang lahat sa pag-alboruto ng Bulkang Taal. Libo-libong pamilya, kabilang ang mga guro at mag-aaral, ang nawalan ng tirahan at mga ari-arian. Mabilis ang naging tugon ng DepEd upang makapagpatuloy sa pag-aaral ang mga apektadong mag-aaral. Sinikap ng mga guro na turuan ang mga mag-aaral na pansamantalang tumuloy sa evacuation center. Tumama sa bansa ang COVID-19 pandemic, dahilan upang maantala ang normal na daloy ng pamumuhay at trabaho sa lahat ng sektor, kabilang na ang kagawaran ng edukasyon. Nang ipatupad ang Luzon lockdown, inilunsad ang DepEd Commons upang tuloy ang pagkatuto ng mga learners habang nasa bahay. Sa kabila ng mabigat na hamon sa ilalim ng new normal, patuloy na nagpunyagi ang DepEd upang maghanap at maghatid ng mga alternatibong pamamaraan upang magpatuloy ang edukasyon sa pinakaligtas at pinakaangkop na paraan. Sa ilalim ng Learning Continuity Plan, layunin ng DepEd na magpatuloy ang edukasyon nang hindi nakokompromiso ang kapakanan at kalusugan ng mga guro at mag-aaral. Isusulong ng DepEd ang tatlong pangunahing layunin: angkop na proteksyon, kaugnay ng mga health standards at safety protocols para sa ligtas na school year, patuloy na edukasyon sa pamamagitan ng blended learning, distance learning at homeschooling na angkop sa kapasidad ng bawat mag-aaral, at mabisang aksyon sa pakikipagtulungan sa lokal na pamahalaan at mga partner organizations upang maihatid ang dekalidad na edukasyon para sa lahat. Bawat DepEd Division ay bumuo rin ng sarili nilang Learning Continuity Plan upang gabayan ang mga guro, mga magulang at mga mag-aaral sa bagong pamamaraan ng pag-aaral gamit ang online, modular at TV and radio-based instructions. Gamit ang iba't ibang learning modalities, nagdaos ng dry run ang mga paaralan sa iba't ibang bahagi ng bansa, katuwang ang mga local government units at mga education partners upang maging handa sa bagong sistema ng edukasyon. Isinagawa rin ang mga pagsasanay at oryentasyon sa mga magulang upang maging epektibong katuwang sa pag-aaral ng kanilang mga anak. Sa anumang hamon o sitwasyon, handa ang DepEd. Handang kumilos, handang tumugon, at handang magserbisyo.
Ang dami ng mga pagsusubok at challenges ang naharap at napagtagumpayan ng ating Department of Education. Tuwing may pagsusubok, priority palagi natin ang ating learners at ang ating mga teachers sa tulong ng parents at saka partners at ang buong bansa. Ngayon, sa hinaharap natin itong new normal na sinasabi nila, matatag ang ating kagawaran, matatag ang DepEd, dahil pinagtibay na tayo ng panahon. Kayang-kaya natin ito sa tulong ninyo.
G'day everyone, I'm Mark. As a teacher and a former principal, I know that professional learning often comes at the end of a very long day. But there are exciting, less structured ways to be in the driver's seat of your own lifelong learning. A great place to start is by engaging with our Microsoft Innovative Educator, or MIE, community. This global community is big, in fact it's enormous. Our MIEs love connecting. Monthly tweet meets are global gatherings of inspiring educators around big topics, and their Facebook group acts as a persistent home for discussions and shared activities. Another way teachers are learning within communities is through Microsoft Teams. Now, greater teacher collaboration improves teaching across schools, and Teams is the ultimate platform for a professional learning community. It's open-walled and socially embedded, so you can incorporate your OneNote Staff Notebook PLC and have access to all the goodness of video chat, phone, and collaboration tools. With Immersive Reader built in, it's inclusive and accessible on any device. Your learning community is just a click away. Last tip, our Microsoft Education Centre offers great ways to gain new skills with courses tailored uniquely to your needs. Make it a collaborative experience by picking a MEC course to do together with your peers. And as a bonus, you can practice collaborative learning by exploring a research paper like the Class of 2030, and treat it just like a book club with your colleagues face-to-face or in Teams. The link to that research, it's in the description. Remember, learning is socially embedded. It's best done together for students and for teachers. Happy learning.
2020 brought new beginnings for the Department of Education. Ready to pivot towards attaining quality education, DepEd was hopeful of the challenges ahead of it. But as DepEd continued to work on its commitment, the world suddenly faced a steeper dilemma. Around the globe, countries like the Philippines had to shift their priorities to respond to a public health crisis brought by COVID-19. Schools had to be closed, activities had to be halted, graduation ceremonies had to be canceled, as people were urged to stay at home. A new normal dawned upon us. As soon as DepEd realized the impact of these disruptions in education, it began to proactively craft its learning continuity plan last April to ensure that learning opportunities will still be available. Consulting with partners and advisors through the Education Forum, as well as legislators, teachers, parents, learners, and the general public, DepEd made sure its LCP encompasses the concerns of the whole education sector in responding to the crisis. Its topmost priority being the protection of the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. To make informed decisions, DepEd first analyzed relevant data and epidemiological picture for the incoming school year. DepEd also issued guidelines on its required health standards to be adopted in all public and private schools and DepEd offices following DOH and IATF protocols. It covers 4 COVID-19 mitigation objectives, namely, to increase physical and mental resilience, reduce transmission, reduce contact, and reduce duration of infection. The LCP also outlined how learning continuity will be ensured. It streamlines the K-12 curriculum into the most essential learning competencies and allows the use of distance learning, homeschooling, and blended learning modalities. Since conducting face-to-face classes will be a risk in most areas, DepEd has anchored its delivery of education to modular, online, TV and radio, or a combination of all. Guided by teachers, modular learning will allow learners to use self-learning modules in a format applicable to learners' capacity. In online distance learning, teachers will facilitate and engage learners' participation through the internet, whether synchronous or asynchronous. TV and radio-based instructions, on the other hand, are converted lessons fit for the broadcast medium. The LCP assures that all our learners, including our SPED, ALS, Madrasa students, can still access education even within the confines of their homes, and ensures that their household capacity will not hinder their right to education. To make this possible, our joint Brigada Eskwela and Oplan Balik Eskwela is assisting the preparations for the rollout of the LCP. On May 8, the LCP was approved by the IATF. The President also gave it his full support and expressed his commitment to meeting the financial demands of its execution. The implementation of the LCP will not be easy. It is not a perfect plan, and complications can be expected along the way. But extraordinary times call for extraordinary and proactive measures, and the Department of Education is ready to address the challenges along the way with the help of our national and local government, partners, parents, and learners. As one nation, learning opportunities shall be available in this brave new world for our Filipino children.
When you need the focus to be on you and not whatever that guy's doing, open Teams.
Subukan mo! Tutal nawasak na naman namin ang lahat ng ari-arian nyo!
Sa totoong buhay, totoo ang pinsala ng giyera. Mula noon hanggang ngayon. Para limitahan ang kalupitan ng giyera, nagkaisa ang mga bansa 70 taon na ang nakalipas upang itaguyod ang Geneva Conventions. Ang Geneva Conventions ay kinikilala ng buong mundo bilang bahagi ng international humanitarian law na nagtatakda ng mga patakaran ng giyera o the rules of war. Ayon dito, huwag gawing target ang mga sibilyan at kanilang mga ari-arian. Tratuhin sa makataong paraan ang mga nabilanggo at protektahan ng mga doktor, nurse at mga ospital para paglingkuran ang mga sugatan at may sakit saan man panig sila nagmula. Alamin ang Geneva Conventions. Bisitahin ang www.therulesofwar.org.
Hi guys! So I just came from a meeting and I was just told that I would be leading this fundraising concert for International Students Day. And I have to present the plan to the school board next week. Okay, I'm going to need some help. Let me create a team space and invite my dream team. Sia, she knows all about the budgeting and stuff. Ivan, he knows all the kids from the performing arts group. Aisha, she worked on getting sponsorship last year. And Sam, because he's so cute. Let me lay out all tasks in Planner and kick things off. So, I'm almost done with my event concept and inspiration board. I just need Ivan to do some final tweaks and plug in the repertoire. Budget from Sia? Check. Sponsorship plan? Check. Done! Whew! When you start using Microsoft Teams, teamwork really does become easier. So now I'm heading over to present the plan to the school board. Wish me luck!
De Luna,
Present!
Herrera,
Present!
Valera.
Present!
Handa ba tayo sa school year 2020?
Present!
Ngayong taon, ang edukasyon tuloy pa rin. Sa tulong ng DepEd, mga guro at mga magulang, ang handang isip, handa bukas. Tuloy-tuloy ang pag-aaral. May mga modules para sa iba't ibang antas. Sa government TV, maging sa radyo. Mahalagang ligtas ang ating mga estudyante at guro. Kaya kahit nasa bahay, tuloy ang edukasyon. Kung tulong-tulong, may paraan, may aralan. Handang isip, handa bukas. Bisitahin ang DepEd Philippines sa Facebook at ang deped.gov.ph.
If you spend more time tracking down files than actually working on them, open Teams.
The COVID-19 pandemic has brought unprecedented changes to our usual ways of living. But the Department of Education remains unfazed by these challenges to fulfill the mission of Sulong Edukalidad, the rallying call for national effort to deliver quality basic education to all Filipinos, which involve aggressive reforms in the 4 key areas: the K-12 curriculum review and update, improving the learning environment, teachers upskilling and reskilling, and engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration to move forward together as we prepare the education system for the future. The call for Sulong Edukalidad will continue, and we have built the framework of the Basic Education Learning Continuity Plan, or the BELCP, to put the needs of the learners at top priority. DepEd's BELCP is the major response and commitment to protect the health, safety, and well-being of learners, teachers, and personnel. The plan aims to provide opportunities to continue education even in these trying times with a BELCP in place, supported by an unprecedented number of diverse stakeholders from the academe, media, industry groups, NGOs, business and private individuals. Sulong Edukalidad will be able to sustain the aims in its reform for quality basic education. In our journey towards quality education, we have established the 4 pillars of aggressive reforms from the start, and we have been continuing to progress in these pillars. In improving the learning environment, we took action in the construction and rehabilitation of school buildings, ensured the availability of learning materials and equipment, and prioritized our last mile schools. The challenges of the pandemic also brought to light the urgent need to upgrade our ICT infrastructure to service the needs of education. In terms of the teachers' upskilling and reskilling, we were able to establish more innovative professional standards for teachers and school heads. We have aligned the professional development of teachers with their career progression to track their development as part of the National Educators Academy of the Philippines transformation. With the launch of the Education Futures program, where we will be focusing on innovative actions and solutions to improve the state of our education, we are now more than ready to start a new journey and continue our fight for quality education for all Filipino learners. Finally, we've given high importance to the engagement of stakeholders for support and collaboration. In support of this, we have convened the Philippine Forum for Accessible Quality Basic Education, or the Education Forum, which will leverage other partnerships for education quality and strengthen partnership with the Philippine Normal University as the country's National Center for Teacher Education. The department has also been developing a professional development program for teachers and school leaders in order to equip them with the skills, materials, and data that will allow them to help their students prepare for PISA 2022. This intervention consists of the following components: online training for teachers and school leaders, development of learning materials and practice tests for students, deepening the analysis of the PISA 2018 results, and supporting school-level action research. Now that the year is about to end, our commitment to Sulong Edukalidad will continue and will be far from being gone. With a lot at stake, considering our new knowledge and experience from this year's challenges, we are equipped to face a new future. As we head on to the future where we will face many challenges and uncertainties, the department will always be the guardian of every Filipino learner's right to education.
Sino ba ang hindi naapektuhan? Sino ba ang hindi nag-alala? Sino ba ang hindi nalito? Lahat tayo ay naapektuhan. Lahat tayo ay nag-aalala. Lahat tayo ay nalito. Dahil binago ng pandemyang dulot ng COVID-19 ang paraan ng pamumuhay ng lahat ng mga Pilipino saan mang sektor ka nabibilang. Tumigil ang panandalian ang ating mga nakagawian. Tumigil ang lahat ng uri ng transaksyon. Tumigil ang lahat ng operasyon ng mga paaralan. Nakalilito. Nakakakaba. Paano na ang kinabukasan ng mga kabataan? Paano na tayo sa hinaharap? Opisyal na nilulunsad ng Kagawaran ng Edukasyon sa pangunguna ng Office of the Undersecretary for Curriculum and Instruction ang DepEd Teaches. Ito ay isang online na programa na gagabay sa mga guro, tagapangasiwa, magulang at mag-aaral hinggil sa mga pagbabago sa batayang edukasyon ngayong new normal. Ang DepEd Teaches ay angkla sa sulong edukalidad na nakatuon sa 4 na pangunahing pangangailangan ng mapunyaging reforma tungo sa makalidad na pagtuturo at pagkatuto. Una, pagre-review at pagsasapanahon ng kurikulum ng K-12. Ikalawa, pagpapaunlad ng kapaligirang pampagkatuto. Ikatlo, paglinang ng mga bagong kasanayan sa mga guro. At ang ikaapat, ang pakikipag-ugnay sa mga stakeholder para sa suporta at kolaborasyon. Sa pamamagitan ng virtual learning platform, ang DepEd Teaches ang magsisilbing bukas na komunidad ng pagsasanay na titipon sa mga guro, tagapamunong pang-edukasyon at sa sinumang may pagnanais sa pagtataguyod ng kalidad na edukasyon sa bansa at sa pagtagumpay ng bawat Pilipinong mag-aaral. Ang mga opisyal, education specialist, learning content expert at outstanding teacher ng DepEd ang magiging tagapanayam na magbabahagi ng kanilang kaalaman at kasanayan sa kurikulum, pagtuturo at pagkatuto, pagtataya at lahat ng kaugnay na mahalaga sa proseso ng pagtuturo at pagkatuto sa new normal. Bilang mga frontliner ng classroom, inaasahang magiging aktibo ang mga guro sa programang ito. Ang mga tema at paksa ay angkop sa kanilang pangangailangan at konteksto sa pamamagitan ng accessible na platform, ang social media. Sumali na sa OUCI family sa DepEd Teaches kung sama-sama mapahuhusay pa ang mga guro, kung sama-sama higit na malilinang natin ang mga mag-aaral.
Buenas tardes a todos, pagbati ng mga Chabacano.
Maray na hapon, pagbati ng mga Bicolano.
Naimbag ang malem, pagbati ng mga Ilocano.
Maradyaw na uto sa Ijuhurot, pagbati ng mga Surigao-non. Ako si Sir Luis Serrano, ang inyong tagapagdaloy para sa sesyong ito.
Ako naman po si Ana Falcon. Pagbati, Sir Luis, at sa lahat ng patuloy na nakikinig at walang sawang sumusubaybay at tumututok sa bawat yugto o episode ng DepEd Teaches mula sa iba't ibang sulok ng bansa. Nakatutuwa dahil mula sa unang episode na ipinalabas noong ika-15 ng Disyembre, nagtala tayo ng 90,000 registered participant. At kahapon, nagtala naman tayo ng halos 100,000.
Well, alam mo Ma'am Ana, pinapakita lang yan na talagang walang hanggang suporta at syempre, tiwala ang lahat ng mga kawani at syempre ang kaguruan ng kagawaran sa atin. Sa dami ba naman ng mga webinar na napapanood nila araw-araw mula na nagsimula ang pandemya, sa kauna-unahang pagkakataon ay napagtipon-tipon natin ang lahat ng mga direktor, ang mga dekalibreng direktor ng mga bureau ng Curriculum of Instruction Strand.
Tunay nga, Sir Luis, dahil siksik, liglig at umaapaw ang mga natutuhan natin sa una at ikalawang sesyon pa lamang. Sa mga ibinahagi ni na Director Andaya ng Bureau of Curriculum Development at Director Ariola ng Bureau of Learning Delivery, tunay na hindi naging madali ang pagbabago at pagsasaayos na isinagawa ng kagawaran dahil nasanay tayo sa face-to-face classes. Sa nakaraang 2 sesyon na ito, Sir Luis, anong mahalagang punto naman ang napulot mo?
Alam mo, para sa akin, Ma'am Ana, total magpapasko naman, gusto kong ikumpara sa pagluluto ng bibingka ang natutuhan ko sa 2 araw ng mga sesyon. Sa unang 2 sesyon na ibinahagi ng unang 2 direktor. Di ba nga, ang bibingka ay may niluluto sa ibabaw, meron rin sa ilalim. Ganito ang tugon natin sa hamon ng pandemya. Di ba? Ang init ng apoy ay ang pagtugon na ginawa natin. Yung mga initiative ng mga field personnel natin mula itaas hanggang sa ibaba. Well, nagbago man ng kalakaran, nagkaroon man ng pagbabago, pero hindi ito inurungan. Ang maganda pa doon, Ma'am Ana, no, na nasa iisang lutuan ito. Ibig sabihin, iisang direksyon, iisang sangkap. Sabi nga ni Director Andaya, they are in search of incredible. They want a realistic, believable, tangible result, yet research-based, na nagresulta ng pinakamahalagang kasanayan na dapat ituro ng pandemya. Samantalang ipinakita naman sa presentasyon ni Director Ariola na kung gaano ka-flexible ang sistema. Sige, may problema, may pandemya. Pero marami tayong solusyon. Hindi lamang iisang solusyon dahil nagresulta ito ng iba't ibang learning modalities na nakadepende sa pangangailangan ng bawat isa.
Tumpak, Sir Luis, sabi nga ni Director Andaya, kahit na may pandemya, mahalagang maging realistiko, kapani-paniwala at makatotohanan ang proseso ng pagtuturo at pagkatuto. Mahalaga rin na maging praktikal ang ugnayan ng lahat ng learning areas para kahit nasa bahay ay may kahulugan pa rin ang bawat natututuhan sa mga kasanayan. Sinusugan naman ito ng presentasyon ni Director Ariola kung saan ibinahagi niya na mahigit 18.6 na milyong mag-aaral ang gumagamit ng modular na paraan ng pagkatuto. Ipinahayag din niya na ang pagnanais natin na maging error-free ang mga SLM. Ngunit, hindi lingid sa atin na nagkaroon ng mga pagkakamali. Hindi ito naging dahilan upang umiwas ang kagawaran sa kanyang responsibilidad. Bagkus, nakita ang pagkakataong ito bilang isang pagkakataon o isang oportunidad para matuto at magtulungan upang makapagbayanihan. Diba? Isa itong tunay na pagpapahalaga nating mga Pilipino. Tama ba, Sir Luis?
Yeah, tama doon. Gustong-gusto ko yung sinabi mo, no? Pagtingin bilang oportunidad sa mga problemang nakita at naranasan. Kaya nga, alam ko at natitiyak ko, Ma'am Luna, no, lahat ng mga tagapanood natin sa hapong ito, sa sesyong tatlong ito, nasasabik na. Kaya nga, mga binibini, ginang at ginoo, muli, inihahandog ng kagawaran ng edukasyon ang ikatong episode ng DepEd Teaches na pinamagatang Overcoming Challenges in Classroom Assessment and Grading System.
Ang ating ikatlong tagapanayam ay nagtapos ng kanyang doktorado bilang Doctor of Education Major in Educational Management sa Philippine Christian University at Master of Arts in Education Major in Curriculum Studies sa University of the Philippines, Diliman. Natamo rin niya ang Special Certificate in Language Teaching sa English Language Center at Management and Leadership sa University of Tokyo sa pamamagitan ng isang full-time scholarship ng Japan International Cooperation Agency o JICA.
At syempre, bilang guro, nakatanggap siya ng mga sumusunod na parangal. Gawad Titulo sa Edukasyon, Guro Nasyon Foundation, Calabarzon's Gawad Patnugot, Anvil Awards, at Metrobank Foundation. Alam mo rin ba na siya ay dating Education Program Supervisor at Chief ng Curriculum Implementation Division, syempre, ng SDO Antipolo. Muli, ayan na, mga binibini, ginang at ginoo, buong pagmamalaki naming inihahandog ang ating tagapanayam sa hapong ito para sa sesyong ito, ang OIC Director 3 ng Bureau of Learning Delivery, Director Lito A. Palomar. Bigyan natin siya ng isang virtual na palakpak.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the third episode of DepEd Teaches on the topic Overcoming the Challenges of Assessing and Grading in the Light of BELCP. Specifically, I entitled this session Examine because again, we will be talking about assessment, and examine because we will attempt to meta-analyze the initial results, feedback of the implementation of DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020, and we will also try to draw implications on different levels of governance. Also, this is examine because there is a requirement, no, because of the pandemic, there might be a requirement for a change mindset, the way we look at assessment at the time of pandemic. Much as I would like this session to be very interactive, I would like our participants in the live chat to join me, in this challenge, in this simple exercise. So I want, if you're a teacher, please join me in raising your hand. May I see your hands? I hope I can see all your hands in the live chat. And we will do the put a finger down challenge. I know you all know what a finger down challenge is. This is very popular in social media. And if you're a teacher and you are experiencing the following, I want you to put a finger down, okay? You might want to put your finger down if you have checked a lot of requirements this first quarter. Thank you. You might also want to put a finger down if you have actually developed your own activities or supplemental activities. Thank you. Now, you may also want to put a finger down if you have ever validated a performance or product. Thank you. Next, put a finger down if you have ever crafted more than 4 written works or more than 4 performance tasks. Thank you. And lastly, I want you to put a finger down if you have ever provided an untimely feedback or you felt like the feedback you have provided was very untimely. Now, I want you to look on the number of fingers that are actually down, and I want you to put it in the live chat. How many fingers are down? May I see your response at the group chat, at the live chat? Meron ba tayong 3? Meron ba tayong 4? Or meron ba tayong 5? Now, after putting in your response, you might want to scan again the live chat and look if you have similar responses. Similar 4s, similar 5s, similar 3s, or similar 2s, or 1 for that matter. Now, if you have similar responses, that only implies that you are not alone. You are experiencing the same challenges in assessing and grading because of the pandemic. And so, let us try to discuss these challenges one by one. At times, we feel like we are checking a lot of requirements. We have a lot to check. And why is that? That is the fundamental question. According to Jackson in 2009, many of us are still unclear about why we grade or what our grades really mean and how we use assessments to help our students learn. As a result, we actually develop assessment practices that can actually interfere with students' learning. We have a lot of papers to check, and we have to make sense. Are these requirements supposed to be checked? Are we supposed to check these activities? Are we not supposed to check these activities? Or are these activities or formative assessments are just supposed to be processed using metacognitive questions? A lot of feedback, we have been reading a lot of feedback that teachers are actually retrieving modules after a week or after 2 weeks, and then after that, they're going to check the modules. So in effect, they have a lot of papers to check after a week or after 2 weeks. Now, I was telling earlier that we have to make sense of these requirements, whether these are supposed to be checked or not to be checked, or just supposed to be processed using the metacognitive questions. We have to do that because if we have a lot of formative assessments to be checked or activities to be checked, we have to ask formative questions instead of just recording for grading because again, formative assessments are not supposed to be graded. So if you are recording the scores from formative assessments and you have an intention to grade the scores or include the scores in the graded component, then we might want to realign our idea about formative and summative assessments because you might just want to look into the scores. You might not record the scores for the purpose of grading, but you might just want to ask metacognitive questions. Saan ka nadalian? Saan ka nahirapan? Bakit ka nahirapan sa activity na ito o bakit ka nahirapan sa task na ito? Ano yung lessons learned mo doon sa difficulty na naramdaman mo o naranasan mo doon sa activity na yon? What are your realizations? And how will you improve? Those are metacognitive questions, and those are questions you can ask instead of just checking all these requirements. Because if they don't have bearing sa grades, then you might not want to record them for grading purposes. Now, there is a basic principle in the interim policy saying that assessments is integral in the understanding of student learning and development. So this is exactly what I'm trying to say earlier, that not all assessments are actually meant to be graded. There are assessments that are being accomplished or taken because we would like to have realizations at the end. And those metacognitive questions can actually help you to know the whereabouts of the learners and, of course, to minimize the requirements you are about to check. To put that into context, we have this Kusina ni Juana. This is my favorite context of formative and summative assessment. If we are cooking sinigang, for example, every time na tinitikman natin yung sinigang, dahil gusto natin ma-improve yung taste ng sinigang, sa unang tikim, medyo matabang. So, lagyan natin ng konting asin. Sa pangalawang tikim, medyo kulang sa anghang. So, lalagyan natin siya ng anghang. Sa pangatlong tikim, medyo kulang sa lapot. Dadagdagan natin siya ng gabi. At sa huling tikim ay kulang siya sa asin. So, lalagyan siya ng asin. And so, we do formative assessments repeatedly, not to perfect the sinigang, but because we want to improve the taste. And that's how formative assessments work. We provide as many formative assessments as we can so that we can improve the learners and prepare them for summative assessment. And of course, the last product or main product to be graded is, of course, the finished product, which is sinigang. But we strike a critical balance between formative and summative assessments because formative assessments, again, are valuable in preparing our learners. The experiences that we give through the formative assessments will actually prepare them to perform the final task. Again, when the cook tastes the soup, that's formative assessment. And when the customers taste the soup, that's summative assessment. Ang formative assessment ay parang pagtikim sa sinigang na paulit-ulit, not because we want to perfect it, but because we just want to improve the taste. And this is according to Paul Black. The next challenge is the development of supplementary activities or materials aside from those that are already in the module. The principle in DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020 is that a variety of assessment strategies is necessary with formative assessment taking priority to inform teaching and promote growth and mastery. Why are we developing supplementary activities? That is the first question. On what basis and for what purpose? So we have to make sense of those questions because formative assessments are actually one of the functions of formative assessments actually to inform the teacher about his or her teaching, to improve growth and professional growth and mastery of the topic or the pedagogy. Taking, for example, the index of mastery, in a class of 45, we have 38 learners who got 5, 5 learners who got 4, 2 learners who got 3, and then no learners got 2 or 1. This is a formative assessment, and The index of mastery is a result of formative assessment because this will help the teacher realize on what steps to take or what plans to have after that after the class or after that period. What is he or what is she supposed to do next? And that should be based on the index of mastery. And that should also be the basis for creating activity sheets or additional activities. We don't just create activities for no reason. And let that index of mastery or let that result of formative assessment be your basis in creating your additional activities. If you make sense of our module, this module or the module has the following parts with their corresponding icons. Then we have to make sense that these icons and descriptions are actually equivalent to various parts of the instructional plan. So what I need to know, we have MELCs. For what I know, we have schema or prior knowledge. For what's in, we have review. For what's new, we have introduction. For what is it, we have concept development. For what's more, we have enrichment. For what I have learned, we have generalization. For what I can do is application. Assessment is, of course, evaluation. And these are the equivalent parts in the instructional plan. Now, right after the evaluation, the teacher will have to decide if there's going to be a remediation or there's going to be an enhancement. And that is the purpose of the additional activities. We will provide the additional activities either for the purpose of enrichment or for the purpose of remediation. And this is exactly um, the reason why we use the score in assessment or in evaluation, because again, this is for instructional decision, whether to do enrichment or whether to do remediation. And of course, we have the answer key as vital part of the module. For the third challenge is validation of performance. There are certain trust issues being raised because we can never tell if an output was actually produced by the learner or by the parent or somebody helping them is helping them at home. So the third principle is assessment and feedback should be a shared responsibility among teachers, learners, and their families. To be able to address this challenge, we have to make it clear amongst teachers, amongst children and families, their responsibility and accountability. And they have to embrace these accountabilities and responsibilities and role. For the teacher, we have to design the assessment to allow flexibility in multiple modalities. So ina-allow natin, binibigyan natin ng discretion ng teacher for her to have flexibility in designing the assessment. That also, we can also consider time as a factor in flexibility. For example, the learner cannot finish or accomplish the task in 2 days, and you might want to extend the deadline in 5 days. Baka nagkasakit yung bata or something happened, and the reason is valid, and so you might want to provide flexibility. Of course, if you have formative assessments or performance tasks, for example, wherein they have to make use of art papers, but because of the age restriction, they cannot just go outside and buy art papers. So the flexibility in terms of using resources, like making use of old calendars, colorful calendars or magazines in lieu of art papers. And that is actually flexibility. And we can do that. And we can address that, or we can communicate such flexibility using the sample weekly home learning plan that you can see right now on your screen. Also, it is our responsibility to set up mechanisms to monitor and record progress remotely, and of course, give timely constructive feedback and facilitate remediation for learners who need further guidance. Now, if we have Appendix F in the DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020, we can see the individual learning monitoring plan. And according to DepEd Order number 8, series of 2015, the remediation should actually start at the 5th week of the quarter. So if we open classes during the first week of October, there is an expectation that we are actually accomplishing this form by the 2nd week of November. And that is the expectation. Now, for the parent, we have to make it clear among the parent or parents
Wala si sir. Pwede tayo mag-moderate, Ana, habang si sir, wala. Nakakwentuhan tayo. Yan. Ano, Bing?
Alright, so nagkaroon tayo ng technical difficulty doon, Sir Luis.
Yeah, talagang hindi maiiwasan ngayong panahon ng pandemya yung mga ganyang technical problem. Kasi nga talagang lahat tayo nakadepende sa internet connection natin. So Ma'am Ana, no, pinag-uusapan natin sa hapong ito yung assessment. No?
Opo,
Malamang,
medyo critical din po ang assessment ngayong mga panahon na to, di ba? Siyempre, tapos na yung first quarter, paano i-assess ang mga bata, yung formative assessment lalo, paano po siya nasisigurado na nagagawa, lalo na po gumagamit ng mga modules ang marami sa ating mga mag-aaral.
Ang pinakagusto ko dun sa binahagi ni Director Lito, no, ngayon sa panahon ng pandemya, kailangan makita natin na maging practical, maging realistic lahat ng forma, paraan at uri ng assessment na gagawin natin. Siguro wag nating pahirapan yung mga alam mo yun, yung mga pwede nating ituro yung mga konsepto, pero ang lahat ng mga halimbawang ibibigay natin through assessment ay makikita sa realidad ng mga bata. Kaya nga 'di ba inahalimbawa ni Director kanina sa sinigang yung kanyang assessment. 'Di ba? Kumbaga, sige, sa Filipino halimbawa, kapag ang kasanayan ay kailangan matuto ng pagpapanuto ang bata. So paano magluto ng sinigang?
Pwede, lifelong learning skills, no? Nabanggit din yan ng mga nakaraang talks na naibigay sa atin ni Director Andaya at ni Director Ariola. Actually, tinarget nila doon na yung lifelong skills dapat din talaga naka-embed yon sa mga tinuturo sa mga bata. And ngayong panahon ng pandemic, tapos nasa bahay ang ang marami sa ating mga mag-aaral, mas matututunan nilang tumulong sa mga gawaing bahay. At ang mga gawaing bahay na ito ay maaari ding mag-contribute sa kanilang kaalaman na may kinalaman naman sa mga learning competencies din na nakapaloob sa ating curriculum.
Correct. After all, yan naman talaga tunguhin ng education natin. No? Kailangan talaga na mabuhubog natin yung buo at ganap na mag-aaral. Siyempre, sa Filipino, may kapaki-pakinabang na literacy. Kumbaga, hindi lang ito basta konsepto lang na hinuhubog natin. Kumbaga, hinuhubog natin yung kabuuan mismo ng mag-aaral.
Tama po.
Ayan. At saka maganda rin, no, yung weekly home learning plan natin. Kasi nagagabayan nito yung ating mga mag-aaral at syempre ng mga guro natin. Kumbaga alam natin nasaan na yung estado ng bata. Kumbaga namapa sa pamamagitan ng weekly home learning plan yung mga bagay na kailangan matupad at kailangan gawin ng mga mag-aaral. Kumbaga monitor pa rin ng mga teachers natin kahit na nasa bahay, kahit na nagmo-module yung mga mag-aaral natin.
Pero grabe Sir Luis, no? Masyadong challenging ang mga na-experience ng ating mga guru ngayon. Imaginein mo, tinuturuan nila ang mga bata, tinuturuan din nila ang mga magulang, and malaking pasasalamat natin sa mga magulang na talagang all-out effort din na iniintindi ang sitwasyon ng ating edukasyon ngayong panahon ng pandemya.
Correct. At doon nga papasok, yung sinabi mo rin kanina, yung espiritu ng pagbabayanihan natin. Di ba? Na talagang taal at likas sa ating mga Pilipino yon. Yun nga, yung sa bahagi ng discussion ni Director Lito kanina, no, yung pinapakita niya yung responsibilidad ng magulang, ng paaralan, di ba? Kumbaga, sa panahon ngayon, para maging ganap ang pagkatuto ng bata, kinakailangan talaga yung pagtutulungan ng paaralan at ng pamilya mismo. Kaya nga may responsibility, kailangan makita rin ng mga magulang yung kanyang responsibilidad sa kanyang mga anak din.
Grabe talaga. Pero siguro dahil din sa pandemic na to, sir, no, nagkaroon ng close ties din ng mga families.
Yes.
Tapos parang ano ba to, ganito pala sa bahay, and then the challenges na meron. Alright,
Okay.
so nakabalik na po si Sir Lito.
Balik tayo sa pagtalakay sa panayam ni Director Lito Palomar.
Yes, thank you very much. So, kitang-kita naman na live tayo no sa ating session this afternoon. So to continue, there is also one challenge na sinasabi that teachers are actually crafting more written works and more performance tasks, no, compared doon sa what are expected, the numbers of the number of expected written works and performance tasks. Sinasabi sa principle natin sa assessment that assessment should be holistic and authentic in capturing the attainment of the most essential learning competencies, or the MELCs, and this is according to DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020. Paano ba natin may iwasan ang pag-craft ng maraming written works and performance tasks? Kasi binigyan din ng susog no ng DepEd OUCI Memorandum number 37, series of 2020, yung ating suggested measures to foster academic ease, na if we can actually minimize the tasks, we can actually do that. But based on the policy, we have actually a minimum of 4 written works, and we have 4 performance tasks. 4 written works enough to cover the content standards and the performance standards. No, bakit may mga cases na we have to add more than 4 WWs or 4 PTs? Actually, that should be based on the number of competencies. That should only be the reason why we have to add, because we cannot just add written works or add performance tasks for no reason at all. Looking at this example for English 9, quarter 1, grade 9, we have the following module theme, the lesson and sub-theme. We have grammar and language focus, so we have 6. And we have 5 performance tasks. So, ang require ng ating policy is just 4. Then, bakit tayo merong 5 performance tasks? It's because the competencies actually, or the competencies are requiring the teacher to have at least 5, no? So, meron tayong additional na 1 because we have to ensure that all the tasks, there is a scaffold, no, doon sa mga tasks natin para ma-equip natin yung bata ng mga tasks na ito to give them enough time and experience and skill to perform the performance standards. So again, we add WWs and PTs only if the competencies are compelling us to do so, but you don't add for no reason at all. Also, it is suggested that we come up with integrated performance tasks, to minimize those requirements on the part of the teacher and on the part of the learners. Teachers are actually advised, per DepEd Order number 31, 2020, to collaboratively design and implement performance tasks that integrate 2 or more competencies within or across subject areas. So complex tasks may be broken down into smaller tasks and be completed over longer periods of time. And for some examples, you might want to refer to Annex D for sample integrated performance tasks. But of course, we have our teachers as audience. We would like to provide a few inputs for them to work on. Why do we have to integrate? One, because again, we would like to minimize performances, but this is just there's more. No, there's more in to just minimizing performances. Of course, we would like our learners to establish connections. Ano yung ginawa kong task today? Ano yung ginawa kong task kahapon? No, kailangan nilang ma-connect yon, because in connecting these performances, these experiences, that they come up with meaning out of this connection. So these are the 3 fundamental reasons why we need to integrate performance tasks. And I'm sharing with you a few integration models. One is multidisciplinary integration, which is the most popular integration, wherein we integrate across learning areas, by combining and looking for something familiar or something common among the competencies. Of course, we have interdisciplinary integration or integration within the same learning area, and transdisciplinary integration, which is integrating the performance task immediately to world problem or real life situations. For the multidisciplinary approach the teachers can use, we can focus on the disciplines. We can use the central themes, the standards and competencies from each subject. So you can just identify the standards, look for something in common, and then build your performance task around the commonalities or similarities of these competencies. We have a sequence model in multidisciplinary approach. For all our teachers, you might want to make use of this model, but this model is actually focused on the difference rather than similarities. We have, for example, subject, science and language, and we have the first lens or the first circle is the school of fish, which is actually a term in science, in ecology, or biology, and we have language, in English or or collective noun. We also have school as an institution in AP. They might be the same sa term, but they mean differently. So, ganun din sa economics, no? We have depression in economics, depression in history, depression in psychology, same terms, but they have different meanings. And this is the sequenced model. And so you can use this model not just to minimize, of course, but to see the contrast between and among the terms. Also, you can make use of the shared model, AP and science, for example, simple machines in science and industrial revolution in AP, and they share something in common, and that is machine. So we focus on this space in between the two overlapping circles, and this is the shared model. Now, it is also provided in DepEd Order number 31, series of 2020, an example of the model, a shared model. So we think about competencies that can be related, to provide one single product or demonstrate a single performance. Say, for example, you have PR1 or PR2 in research, and you might want to invite a mathematics teacher to look into the computations integrated in the research. So we have two subjects already. You might also want to invite the English teacher to look at the language use or yung technical writing, no, yung pagkasulat ng ating research. So we have three subjects altogether. Or you might also want to involve the science teacher if the topic is all about scientific investigation. And this is a shared model. You might also want to make use of the web model or the thematic approach to integrating performance tasks. Kasi pag tinignan natin yung Araling Panlipunan, for example, from kinder to grade 10, we have themes, and these themes actually nag-emanate siya sa discovery of the self or self-awareness, no? From kinder, in Araling Panlipunan kasi the first few topics is self-introduction, no? Yung what is your name, ano yung age mo, saan ka nakatira, ano yung favorite subject mo, paglaki mo, ano yung ambition mo. So that is self-awareness. At kapag pumunta naman tayo sa science, for example, yung mga topics doon ay parts of the body or human anatomy, and that is also self-awareness. Pag pumunta ka sa MAPE, specifically sa health, we have personal hygiene, and that is also self-awareness. Even doon sa kinder, my toes, my knees, my shoulder, my head, parts of the body, this is also self-awareness. So if you might want to work on that based on the theme, then that is web model. For teachers, also you might also want to plan for integrated performance tasks using the thread model, and this is also called the meta-curriculum approach. You just look for common thinking skills, that cut across learning areas. Say, for example, you have prediction skill, and there's prediction in mathematics, and this is estimation. There's also prediction skill in current events, and this is forecasting. You have anticipation in literature, and you have hypothesizing in science. So we have prediction skills embedded in four subject areas in this particular example, and this is the threaded model or the meta-curriculum approach. The next model is intradisciplinary integration. It is possible that you can integrate performance tasks within the same learning area. This is an example of an intradisciplinary approach to integrating performance tasks. So we have Compass or Compendium of Performance Tasks or Assessment Strands and Standards. And we have borrowed this output from SDO Antipolo. Thank you for allowing me to make use of this example for today's discussion. Ano yung ginawa dito sa project na ito? This is an example from Araling Panlipunan Grade 3 and they have actually yung tema ng Araling Panlipunan Grade 3 ay regional yung approach. So they have the pamantayan sa pagganap or performance standard sa unang markahan. Meron siyang performance standard sa pangalawang markahan, performance standard sa pangatlong markahan, at performance standard doon sa pang-apat na markahan. So ang ginawa ng team is nag-produce sila ng mapa ng Calabarzon, no, para makita nila yung makagawa sila ng performance task based sa performance standard ng first quarter. Then itinabi nila ito at nilabas nila ng second quarter para muling gamitin, hindi siya itinapon. At yung second quarter nilagyan nila ng kabisera at nilalagyan lang nila ito ng added value, no? Tapos ng second grading tinabi uli nila para ilabas sa third grading, and they made use of the map again in the third grading period, and they just added some values such as yung kultura, yung mga sagisag ng sa pamamagitan ng modeling, pagkanta, pagtula, pagsayaw at pagsusudula. And of course, tinabi uli ito para ilabas sa fourth grading para naman sa isang interactive exhibit. So basically, nakita natin yung alignment o yung tuhog, no, o yung hobby o tahi ng mga performance tasks within the same learning area, not just because we would like to minimize the task, but because we want our children to see the connections doon sa mga task na ginagawa nila. No, na yung ginawa ko pala ng first grading is related sa second grading, ng third grading at fourth grading. At nakikita natin na walang performance task at walang output na tinatapon, lahat gamit na gamit because again, these are related performances or products. And of course, the third reason is because we want our children to come up or produce meaning or make meaning out of these connections. And at the end of the day or at the end of the school year, they will realize na dapat maging proud sila na maging part ng Calabarzon because of the rich culture, yung kanilang arts, no, yung kanilang economy, at yung way of life. And this is an example of interdisciplinary approach to integrated performance. And of course, the last model na I'm going to be sharing with you today is transdisciplinary integration, or the approach which organizes a student question on real-world situation or real-world topic. Say, you create a scenario, even if the classroom is virtual or modular in nature, you can actually establish a classroom as a Department of Tourism, IATF, Department of Health, Department of Energy, Consumer Bureau, and Environmental Agency. Taking IATF, for example, mga teachers, for example, the task is essay, na pwede na natin siya i-establish or i-connect sa real-life situation. Say, write an essay on what to do during a pandemic. So that's an essay related to real-life situation kaagad. And you might want to produce an advocacy material about the nature of ECQ, GCQ, or FGCQ for that matter. So that's another performance task related to real-life situation. And of course, say, draw a poster about the correct hand washing techniques. So pwede natin siyang gawin. And this is transdisciplinary model because we have just created performance tasks that we can already relate to real life situations. And we produce a theme, no, for that matter. And the last approach I'm sharing with you this afternoon is the component approach. You can actually look for performance tasks or activities that can serve both as written work and performance tasks. Say, for example, you ask, you gave a quiz and you ask a learner to compute or solve a problem, and that is written work. But if you have a competency, for example, in mathematics, that would require a learner to compute or solve a problem accurately, and that is already a performance task, then that same quiz may serve both as written work and performance task. So you have two components already in one performance task. Or if you ask a learner to come up with a quiz, write a paragraph, no, or yeah, a quiz in a form of paragraph. So they will write a paragraph, and that can also serve as a performance task at the same time. So isang paragraph na written work na siya and performance task din siya at the same time. So again, we only do integrated performance task. One, because we would like to minimize the performance tasks. Second, because we would like them to realize that what they do, the learning experiences and the learning tasks are not chunks of independent, unrelated tasks and assessments. They have to build connections between tasks within the learning area or across learning areas para may kinalaman pala yung math ko doon sa ginagawa ko sa English, sa ginagawa ko sa science, etc., etc. And of course, make meaning out of this connection sa kanilang totoong buhay. And these are examples or models of integrated performance tasks. Pero again, this might not be a requirement kasi syempre depende, kailangan ang ating integration pa rin ay fluid, no? Dapat maganda yung pagkatahi, maganda yung pagkahabi niya. Hindi siya kailangang pilit, hindi siya kailangang hilaw. So kailangan fluid pa rin yung ating integration, and therefore it actually depends on the nature of competency, the nature of the task na pinaplano natin, the scenario na binibuild natin, and of course, yung learning area na pwedeng makapag-establish ng common competencies. So depende pa rin, no? But this strategy will help our teachers a lot in minimizing the task, no, para makabawas na din sa stress and anxiety ng ating learners and of course our teachers. And of course, yung ating last challenge is the provision of feedback. No, meron tayong sinasabi na very untimely daw yung mga feedback, medyo late na yung mga feedback. We say kasi, no, that if you want to provide students with useful feedback about their mastery, then you will need to help them develop a different understanding of grades. Sinasabi ko kanina na kailangan may change of mindset about how learners see grading and how learners see assessment. Kailangan merong makabuluhang meaning ang pag-assess sa kanila, no? And we use feedback productively, no? Kailangan meaningful din yung paggamit ng feedback. Although sinasabi natin that timely is a relative word, ibig sabihin, if you have access to internet, you can provide feedback immediately, 2 minutes, 5 minutes, go. Matatapos natin yan. But if your school is actually located sa mga mountains or yung kailangan tumawid ng dagat, no, 1 day or 2 days, no, yung pagkuha natin ng ating feedback. So timely is actually a relative word. At we don't expect na we have similar context, no, sa mga learning communities kasi iba-iba nga yung kanilang situations at iba-iba yung conditions. And with that change mindset is actually to look at the feedback, no, sa aspeto ng kanyang quality rather than ng kanyang speed, no. So pwedeng mabilis yung pagbigay natin ng feedback, but we should also focus on quality. Kasi pwedeng mabilis nga siya, pero nagdi-diminish naman yung quality ng feedback na binibigay natin. So we have to rethink about the way we provide feedback. No? So hindi lang basta mabilis o madali, but because we must focus on the quality of the feedback. For the longest time, we have been thinking about the value of summative assessment kasi dito focus ang grade ng bata, no, at dinidetermine ng summative assessments ang pagkatuto ng bata, no, ang galing ng bata. But again, as a form of change mindset, what is good about the current policy is that it puts premium on the value of formative assessments, yung contribution ng formative assessment, no. So if our children are taking formative assessments and a lot of formative assessments and they fail they fail in the process, we only have to tell them that failure is not actually final, it's formative. You know, there is beauty in failure, there is wisdom in failure. Because pag nag-fail ka sa first activity, second activity, or third formative assessment, you just have to make a realization. No? Mag-reflect ka sa dulo. Bakit ako bumagsak? Saan ako nagkulang? Saan ako nagkamali? At ito pala yung mga dapat kong i-improve. And that's the beauty of failing in formative assessments or the formative assessment itself, because it helps, or per se, because it helps the learner to come up with realizations and reflections at the end of the day. At mas importante at mas substantive or substantial yung mga ano na ito, yung mga realizations na ito sa pagkatuto ng ating mga estudyante. And it's a bold move on the part of the Department of Education not to have periodical assessments or periodical tests or quarterly assessment this year, because we would like to maintain a realistic and authentic kind of assessment at the time of pandemic. Now, talking about feedback and talking about formative assessment, there's a principle in DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020 that assessment and grading should have a positive impact on learning. Dahil nga sinasabi natin, depende sa quality ng ating feedback at sa quality ng ating assessment, na hindi tayo nagbibigay ng assessment for the purpose of just giving assessment or compliance for grading. We should always realize the skill embedded in assessment na binibigay natin sa ating mga bata are essential skills they can use in dealing with real life situations. Ang mga pagkatuto, ang pagsubok na binibigay sa bata sa pagtataya ay magbibigay sa kanya ng kakanyang harapin ang pagsubok sa totoong buhay. And that is what we mean when we say we should have a positive impact on learning, talking about assessment. And for the information of everyone, we actually have produced 2 resources at the moment. This is one is the guide for writers on how to enhance formative assessment and self-learning modules at nagkaroon tayo ng orientation sa writers yesterday. And as an attachment to DepEd Order number 31 series of 2020, we have classroom assessment resource book. And these are 2 important resources na pwede natin gamitin if we would really want to ease the burden na sa in assessment na kinukos ng pandemic. These are very helpful resources, of course, with the help of our partners, the University of the Philippines, ACT-RC, Australian Aid, University of Melbourne, and of course, yung mga kasama natin sa Department of Education. Now, what are the implications? So first, sa last few slides ng presentation natin this afternoon, what are the implications? We sometimes underestimate the influence of little things. Ang nakikita natin kasi sa forefront ng battle are the teachers. But we need support from the principals, we need support from the supervisors, and from the chief. It has to take a community of practice, it has to take a community of learning leaders to effectively implement the policy at the time of pandemic. Kung meron tayong mga pagbabago sa policy, sa interim policy natin, we have to make sense of these changes, of these modifications, along with some other issuances related to assessment, dahil meron itong malaking impact sa management, sa supervision, hindi lang sa loob ng classroom. Kailangan ng teacher ng suporta ng kanilang principal para magawa ng tama ang classroom assessment. At kailangan ng mga principal ang expertise ng mga supervisors sa kanilang instructional supervision para mas masagawa ng tama ang ating interim policy on assessment. And what are these implications I'm talking about? In navigating the new normal in learning outcomes assessment, ito sa parte na ito ng kasi baka as a principal, as a supervisor, hindi natin dapat inaalis yung sarili natin from the equation. We are part of the learning community, of the DepEd community. And we have to ensure that the policy in assessment, policy on assessment, at pati yung practice ng assessment ay naka-embed sa ating mga mother documents such as our main mandate, our quality management system. The learning outcomes assessment has to be established process in the school or learning community, and of course, LCP. Kasi ang unang tanong dyan, nasaan si assessment sa mandato mo bilang learning leader? Nasaan si assessment sa proseso mo? At nasaan si assessment sa LCP ng paaralan, ng SDO o ng region? And we have to ensure that the assessment, the concept, the practice, and the principles and policies are all there in the mother documents. Taking, for example, the ESIP Annex 3 Gap Analysis template, at the school level, pag nakita natin yung DEDP, the division targets, say for example, we have 0 dropout, attain basic literacy, kunyari yung pangatlo natin ay yung ating MPS. And we know for a fact that we do not have periodical tests this year. So ang tanong natin ay ano yung support ang nakuha natin at ano yung calibrations ginawa natin sa mother document na ito. If we have a project that is greatly dependent on the result of periodical assessment, and we no longer have periodical assessment this year. So ano yung mga alternative na binigay nating success indicators for these projects? And when I say projects, these are CI projects, application projects, concept papers. Kailangan natin ma-redefine ang mga success indicators as an implication sa modification ng ating interim policy on assessment. Of course, if we are in the division or regional level, we have a KRA or key result area on assessment, and we call this the assessment of learning outcomes. So kung isa sa mga success indicators natin or objectives natin sa KRA na ito, ang result ng periodical test, as a summative assessment, ano yung naging kapalit niya na objective or success indicator sa KRA na ito. And we have to make sense of that because that will predict the kind of implementation that we will have at the school level, at the classroom level. Remember that again, hindi lang ito concern or challenges sa part ng teacher. Ito ay concern ng lahat because then and again, we need the community of practice and we need a community of learning leaders to be able to deliver and cope with the challenges of assessment in the new normal. In closing, I would like to share with you one of my favorite quotations from Mark Twain, and he said, and I quote, that the two most important days in your life are the day you are born and the day you find out why. And I would like to emphasize the day you find out why. We are teachers, we are principals, we are supervisors or chiefs, and some of us must have been promoted at the time of pandemic, and there has to be a realization. Why are we teachers, principals? Why are we PSTS? Why are we chiefs? Why are we supervisors at the time of pandemic? There has to be a deep realization. There has to be a reflection because this will give us a sense of purpose. And if we have that sense of purpose in mind, in our heart, no matter how tiring, no matter how severe pa or yung risk ng pandemic, we will never feel tired or exhausted because all of this ay para sa bayan at para sa bata. So with that, again, good afternoon everyone and thank you for your engagement.
Maraming salamat, Director Palomar, sa napaka-komprehensibo at praktikal na pagtatalakay ng iyong paksa. Sa loob ng 30 minutong pagtatalakay, nakatitiyak akong marami na namang napulot na kaalaman ng ating mga tagapakinig. At panigurado, hahanapin ng bawat isa ang kani-kanilang sense of purpose.
Tiyak ko rin, Ma'am Luna, na maraming mga katanungan, mga agam-agam, na mga tanong ng mga implementers natin, ng mga guro natin na sigurado na nasagot ngayong hapong ito. At syempre, yung kanina pang talagang pinupunto ni Direct, yung pinaghanguan ng kanyang talakay, yung DO31 series of 2020 natin. Para baka may mga tanong specifically yung mga guro natin, pwede nating i-access, basahin yung memorandum na yon.
Okay? So muli, ipinapaalala namin ang mga sumusunod. Para makatanggap ng katibayan ng pakikilahok, mahalagang magpatala sa mga link ng registration. Ipapadala namin ang katibayan sa email address na inyong ibinigay. Tiyakin lamang na tama ang inyong mga impormasyon, ang spelling ng inyong pangalan at ang inyong email address. Dahil na rin sa mainit na pagtanggap ng lahat, bigyan po ninyo kami ng 10 hanggang 15 araw para ipadala ang mga katibayang ito.
Ayan. At saka Ma'am Luna, bago natin tapusin ang programang ito, sa episode nating ito, umabot tayo ng halos 19,000 viewers. At syempre, may mga share at likes. Mas talagang ramdam na ramdam natin ang talagang suporta at walang sawang pagmamahal ng mga guro at mga kawani ng kagawaran. At syempre po, patuloy po natin suportahan ang susunod pa nating episode bukas na pinamagatang Overcoming Challenges in Learning Resources. At ang ating tagapanayam para bukas ay si OIC Director Attorney Aris Delson Akay D. Kawilan ng Bureau of Learning Resources.
Okay, so salamat sa ibinigay ninyong oras dahil sa kabila ng inyong abalang mga schedule at nalalapit na Kapaskuhan, pinili ninyong makinig at makiisa sa DepEd Teaches sa hapong ito. Mula sa buong pamilya ng Curriculum and Instruction, bumabati kaming muli ng isang mabungang hapon sa ating lahat.
Dahil sa DepEd Teaches, ang mission namin ay empowering teachers, enabling learners. Muli, magandang hapon sa ating lahat. Maraming salamat sa pakikinig.